Raider head coach Brian Teal here. Just want to welcome you guys to the RO Sports Show.
That was Richmond Senior High School varsity football head coach Brian Teal giving us a shout out this week. We really appreciate him doing that. And of course, welcome to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. I'm, of course, Matt Harrelson, joined to my right by our regulars, Jeremy McKenzie and Russell Parker. You guys have a good week today?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get right into it. Of course, the biggest story this week has to be the NCAA's FBI investigation. This, of course, came out, Yahoo Sports reported it came out this past Friday morning. And it has not only national ramifications, but also ramifications right here in the Sandhills area and on Tobacco Road. We'll get to that in just a second. For those of you that have been living under a rock for the last week or don't really follow sports, basically what happened is players from more than 20 Division I men's basketball programs were identified as possibly breaking NCAA rules through violations that were uncovered. Some of them receiving loans, some of them as simple as going out to eat with agents from ASM Sports. Now, schools identified by Yahoo as having players who possibly violated these rules were Duke, North Carolina, Texas, Kentucky, Michigan State, USC, and Kansas. So obviously some of the big boys, some of the blue bloods of college basketball. Now, as I mentioned, this has ramifications here on Tobacco Road. Some names that were brought up was Duke's Wendell Carter Jr., who is actually playing for the Blue Devils as we speak. Tony Bradley, of course, was with the Tar Heels last year and was drafted in the NBA this past spring. And then for Dennis Smith Jr., who is now with the Dallas Mavericks, apparently he allegedly received $73,000 from one of the agents from ASM. So I want to get your guys' take. What do you see happening as far as the teams I just mentioned, and what kind of ramifications do you think this could have on just the NCAA in general?
Well, to the degree where you can see some suspensions, violations to these teams where it could cost them no recruitment for a few years, and then by some of the guys are in the NBA already, they could get fined as well, and also can jeopardize their career in the process.
You're absolutely right, Russell.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of monetary fines probably come out of this. And, of course, I guess the integrity will be hurt there as well among those teams. Players probably won't want to go there if they're having stuff like that happening. And, of course, it will affect recruiting as well altogether.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And one name that's already come out is Arizona's head coach, Sean Miller, who apparently has been caught on an FBI wiretap discussing a $100,000 payment to one of their players that's on the team right now, DeAndre Ayton. That, of course, is obviously a big deal because, if they find out this to be true, not only is he going to lose his job in Arizona, but you could be in a situation where you're shunned from the game forever, because obviously, I mean, let's be honest, folks, this happens. We've known it happens. In my opinion, the NCAA a lot of times likes to sweep it under the rug.
Yes.
But regardless of that, the thing that I worry about is Tony Bradley obviously was on the Tar Heels last year. We won a national championship. Do you guys think this could be a scenario where we end up losing that banner?
It could be a strong possibility because we have seen teams in the past had to forfeit their championship banners due to violations. Just like for a prime example, like Reggie Bush, most of y'all who played for Southern California, won the Heisman Trophy several years ago, and he had to forfeit his because of some violation that came upon that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And another team from basketball that's in the ACC is Louisville.
Yes.
Rick Pitino, there was a big investigation into all that, and I believe it was 2011, 2012, something like that.
Yes.
And they've already lost that banner. Of course, they don't like that, and who would? But like I said, actually Alabama was one of the teams on there. Colin Sexton. Now, again, obviously these teams have all denied it. There could be something there. There could be nothing there. Like, for instance, Wendell Carter and Tony Bradley are alleged to have had lunch with one of these guys. Now, obviously, in my opinion, again, that's not on the same level as accepting $73,000 like Dennis Smith did or Miles Bridges from Michigan State who's on there. But, again, we'll have to wait and see how this shakes out and kind of go from there. Again, though, what's it going to do to March Madness? Are some of these guys going to get suspended? Do you think it'll have an impact when we come to March?
Yes, it will, because some of these guys are key players to those teams where it can affect the game and come the outcome of how far they'll go.
Yeah. Russell, what do you think?
Having missing players, just one can destroy the whole chain and break it all down. And it could be asking the coaches and the players be asking themselves, what if? So.
Yeah. And, Wendell Carter from Duke, if they lose him, that would hurt them, obviously. I don't think it would hurt them as much because, they still have Grayson Allen there. They still have Marvin Bagley III, who, is probably the best freshman in the league, in my opinion. I think it would hurt a team more like Alabama, who relies on a player like Colin Sexton, or Michigan State, who has some good players, but Miles Bridges is almost the key to run their offense. Again, Villanova, another one of those teams whose coaching staff is hanging out there. And if you look at the top 25 right now, most of these teams, except for Texas and USC, are on there and will be high seeds when we get to March. So, again, we'll have to wait and see how all of this will play out and kind of go from there. So anything else you guys want to add?
Well, I was thinking, how would you prevent these from happening in the future? What if you start paying the players? That they've many conversations before about paying student athletes. That could fix these issues where what coaches are paying the players and getting fined for it, just allow them to get paid.
Yeah. And
not that much, but something.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because Mark Emmert, who is the NCAA president, came out when all of this was revealed, and in my opinion, kind of put out a bit of an ironic quote, and I can't remember exactly what it is, so I'll paraphrase, but he was mostly saying that he was, upset and disappointed that this was happening. But again, I just said they know that this is happening. It's happened several times. It's been happening since college basketball has been, as big as it is now. And I agree with you. I think there should be some kind of stipend, I guess, where these guys are able to get paid because, let's face it, the NCAA in football and in basketball make billions.
Oh, yeah.
Billions with a B off of these guys.
Yes.
The coaches are making millions of dollars.
Nick Saban makes $6 million a year.
Yeah, he's the highest paid coach in college football.
Yeah, and, as far as transferring, coaches can move whenever they want to. Players are not able to do that. I just think there's a discrepancy when it comes to the NCAA saying that they are disappointed in this and what's actually going on.
And, I know they offered a scholarships to them, but, that's only so much compared to what they're making. That's pennies compared to their dollars that they're making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think, video games. They use these kids' likeness. They have the same jersey numbers. If you follow your team, you know who those guys are. They know who these guys are. Same thing, when it comes to TV rights with the college football playoff, the bowl season. March Madness is obviously an event that makes them millions upon millions of dollars. So in my opinion, why not kick a little bit of that towards your players? Now, look, obviously teams that are down there at the bottom of the food chain, Division III, Division II, some of your really small Division I teams, they're not going to be able to pay their players as much. But let's face facts. The big-time players weren't going to go there anyway.
No.
So why not kick a little bit back to some of these players that are making you millions of dollars?
Right.
So, but, yeah, like we said, we'll have to wait and see how that's going to turn out and if or when it will affect March Madness coming up, or even before that, the league tournaments that will be starting next week. But when we come back, we're going to have an exclusive interview with head coach Brian Till of the Richmond Senior High School's varsity football team from the 2018 State of the Program Address. We'll be right back with more RO Sports Show brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
At Richmond Community College, we can prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
Exit Realty Platinum in Rockingham has listed one of the most beautiful homes in Richmond County. Located in Rockingham on Ledbetter Lake, the home features 4 bedrooms with bamboo floors and a kitchen featuring stainless steel appliances and granite countertops, and a master bedroom that overlooks Ledbetter Lake, along with a spacious tile shower and the attached master bathroom. The open living space leads to the back deck with a perfect view of Ledbetter Lake, and the property features its own boat dock. Want to see this beautiful home? Call Nicole Hayden with Exit Realty Platinum, your source for homes in Richmond and Moore counties.
Matt Harrelson here with the Richmond Observer, and we're being joined by Richmond Raider head coach Brian Till. Thanks for joining us, Coach. We just got through with the state of the program address, and I guess generally speaking, what right now is the state of the program?
Well, for us, the state is kind of off-season, but hard work, I would think, is the big thing. And moving forward, state of the program is we're moving forward, moving from last season into this season, and there's a lot going on, and more than anything else, excited about the future of our program and where we're headed.
And I know you mentioned earlier about student athletes. Talk about how important the student part of that is.
Well, it's of utmost importance because everybody's football career is going to end eventually. I mean, even if you look at Melvin Ingram and Donnell Ellerby are in the league right now, and they've had really good careers. Eventually, you're going to stop. Well, what's that going to mean? What are you going to do? And so we've been blessed to have a lot of great football players, but every one of these guys who play here went on into real life afterwards. And so the student part helps prepare them for that, and we try and help prepare them as much as possible so they can be successful on the field and then learn from those lessons to be successful in life.
And I know when you were announcing this on Facebook and on social media, you invited people from the community, not just those involved with the football program. Other people I noticed you invited were kids that aren't necessarily in the program now, but those could be in the future. What was the purpose of doing that?
Well, we really want our entire community to understand the scope of our program, and for them to be prepared. Those kids be prepared to understand the investment it is, but also understand the great rewards from it. Really to kind of cut off some issues we have with communication. We want to be as open and get that communication out as soon as possible so everybody knows what's going on. We also invited teachers and obviously some leaders, public leaders, and folks who are public servants, and just really appreciate them being here as well so that our kids can see, hey, it's so much bigger than just right now that one snap on the field.
Right. Moving forward, what in the community can people do as far as helping out the program?
The big thing they can do is just whatever they can do. Whether it's they love to cook meals for the boys. If they want to come in and help us paint up and dress some things up, we're glad to have that help. If they want to invest just by monetarily, obviously we can take that and then put it into towards several initiatives where we're sending boys to camps, whether we're sending our coaches to clinics. There's several things we talked about tonight that would give them opportunities to invest in those guys. But like I said, if they know something they can do, a specific skill, we had folks come in and help us just transport some things last year when I first got here, cleaning stuff up. Mm-hmm. If that's some people, whatever they can do, we're more than willing to give them an opportunity to bless these kids.
And spring obviously is right around the corner. Summer's right behind that. Just to recap for those watching, when will spring practice and then summer practice start after that? Okay,
so spring practice, we'll have some skill development sessions starting March 5th, just a couple days a week here and there per position. The entire team will be on March 14th for 2 weeks, March 14th through the 25th. We'll have 10 days. We'll have everybody out there except those guys who are playing in their spring sports, involved in the postseason stuff. Hoping our baseball team's got a deep run, and we got a few of those guys out, and track regionals and state finals. We kind of finishing up about that time. So those will be the only guys not there at that time. Summer would start, I believe it's June 11th. We start our first summer workouts. The last day for students is June 7th. June 11th is the first day of summer workouts. And then the season, July 30th. So it's just kind of a series of events and kind of just crescendos, builds up to the beginning of the 2018 season.
And finally, Coach, between now and July 30th when the season's set to start, what do you guys want to accomplish to be ready for the season?
I think we want to accomplish getting bigger, stronger, physically. And this is obviously in addition to doing what we're supposed to as students. So I always want to preface with that. So we want to get bigger and stronger. We want to have a better understanding this year 2 of our offense and our defense, and then be a cohesive unit from a leadership standpoint, from a culture standpoint with our kids, be a cohesive unit moving into the 2018 season because you play football as a unit and as a team, and we really want to have all those things tightened up going before we play the first down. All
right. Head coach Brian Till, thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
Family Pharmacy is a local pharmacy that's been in business in Rockingham for over 10 years. Located in the Food Lion Shopping Center on US 1 North, we have easy access into the store and a drive-thru for your convenience as well. You can download the official Family Pharmacy app at myfamilypharmacy.com, and we'll help you set it up to text you when your prescription is ready, and you can even set it up to fill your prescriptions when due. Our motto is we'll treat you like family, and it's something we truly mean. We take the same care in filling your prescription that we would take for our own family. Family Pharmacy, we'll treat you like family.
And once again, we appreciate head coach Brian Till joining us for an interview at the 2018 State of the Program address last week. Now, guys, we were talking about college basketball off the jump here, but I want to continue this conversation because, as we mentioned earlier, March Madness is right around the corner. Today, of course, the first day of March. Just going through some of the teams on Tobacco Road, how they did over this past week. Number 5 Duke lost 64-63 at Virginia Tech on Monday. If you watched that game, you know that they got beat on a buzzer beater. Grayson Allen led the Duke Blue Devils with 22 points. Virginia Tech had 4 guys in double digits. I wanted to make fun of Duke for losing that as a buzzer beater, but then the next night on Tuesday, Carolina suffered the same outcome when they lost to Miami 91-88. Now, Joel Berry actually made a three-pointer to tie it up 88-88 with just a few seconds left. One of the Miami players literally ran right down the court from almost half court, sank it, and they beat us by 3 points. Joel Berry had 31 of those. This was actually Berry and Theo Pinson's last home game as a Tar Heel, so unfortunately they did not go out with a bang. And then, of course, NC State will be playing Georgia Tech later on tonight after the show, so we'll have to wait and see how they do. Now, looking at the standings for the ACC, Virginia is 15-1. They've already wrapped up the regular season ACC championship. Right now, Duke is 12-5. UNC is 11-6. So whoever wins this game potentially could end up in second place. Could end up with a bye in the first round of the ACC tournament, which, of course, is a big deal. Now, the big game that we got going on, Carolina and Duke, is going to be Saturday at 8:15. Before we get to that, though, we're going to make a prediction. But, of course, last week we made a prediction between Kansas and Texas Tech. Of course, all three of us picked Kansas. I know that you're still undefeated.
Yes.
I'm not doing that well. Russell, we're about at the same level. So hopefully we can catch up to Jeremy here. But regarding the big Duke-Carolina game on Saturday, I want to get your guys' opinion and also your prediction on it. Jeremy?
Even though we see Carolina is doing so well right now, and despite the loss at Miami at the last minute, but we're looking at Duke and Carolina. Very big crowd, sold out every time. It seems like Duke come to Carolina, we beat them, vice versa. And we getting ready for the Tar Heels, the reigning, defending national champions, who will be coming into Duke. And I hate to say this, even though I'm a diehard Tar Heel fan, but I see Duke taking this win.
Okay. Russell?
Yeah, I think I find it very difficult to see UNC go 2-0 over Duke on the season. I think it's going to be a 1-1, so I'm going to go with Duke on this one.
Well, you know, I'm like you guys. I was definitely like you, Jeremy. Of course, I am a diehard Tar Heel fan. But like you said, when Duke comes to us, we usually win. When we go to Cameron Indoor, they usually win. It's going to be 9,000 people, which is not a lot, but they're literally right on top of you, yelling. When they inbound it, they stretch their hands out and they're right there almost touching you. With that being said, I am also going to have to take the Duke Blue Devils simply because they have home court advantage. And I hate to say it, and I'm sorry, fellow Tar Heel fans, but we are in accord when it comes to picking the Blue Devils on Saturday. And I think one of the biggest reasons is it's going to come down to shooting. Neither team plays great defense, as we saw in the first game. Rebounding obviously is going to be a big deal. Can Luke May pull down rebounds? What's Marvin Bagley III going to do for Duke? Who is Grayson Allen going to trip?
Well, he's going to punch.
No, but we kid. But, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I expect it to be a close score, as it always is. You can always throw the records out of the book when it comes to this game. But, again, all three of us picking Duke. Some of us a little more reluctantly than others. Now, looking at ESPN, Joe Lunardi pretty much every week puts out what he calls bracketology. He starts it at the first part of the season. He updates it throughout the year as we go along. As of right now, The top number 1 seeds, he has Virginia as the number 1 overall seed coming out of the South, Kansas as a number 1 in the West, Villanova in the East, and Xavier number 1 in the Midwest. Now, I also read a report that he expects right now the ACC to get 9 total teams in. Now, a lot can happen, a lot can change between now and then, but that would be the most out of any conference in the nation. And I'll just read these off for you real quick. He's got UNC as a 2 seed, Duke also as a 2 seed, Clemson as a 5 seed, Miami as a 7 seed, Virginia Tech as an 8 seed, Florida State and NC State as 9 seeds, and Louisville wrapping it up with an 11 seed. Once we get into March Madness, I want to do a special show for that with you guys. But right now, I'll put you on the spot. Out of all the teams from the ACC, who do you think will make it the furthest?
UNC, Chapel Hill.
Think UNC will make it furthest?
Yes.
I'm going to go with a sleeper on this one. I guess it'll be a sleeper because usually they're not in basketball talk that much. I'm going to go with Clemson on this.
Yeah, that could very well happen. Right now, I'm going to have to go with Virginia, and I know that's a boring pick because they're number 1, but they play great defense, as we saw when they played Carolina, and basically when they play anybody. They usually keep you in the 40 to 60 point range, and when they do that, they always win. You know, the Tar Heels, just specifically, when we score 90 points or so, we usually win. Of course, we bucked that system on Tuesday. But they just play great defense. They shoot the three-point ball well. They make free throws when it matters down the stretch. And those are the key things that you have to be able to do when it comes to March Madness. Now, Russell, I was looking at it, and I noticed that Lunardi has Alabama on there as a 10 seed. So I want to get your take on it.
Well, I have to say I'm actually kind of impressed recently. I'm not really too impressed with recent games of Alabama. They haven't won a game in about 2 weeks now.
Really?
So I think their last win was, I can't remember. It's been so long. It's like February 13th, the last one. So they haven't had a very good past few weeks doing that. They just got stomped by Florida, and Auburn destroyed them. So seeing them still in the talk, it amazes me. But I do hope they get in there, and I would like to see them go past the first round at least.
Yeah, and I know you've mentioned before on the show here that Alabama sometimes seems to play either up or down to their competition, and obviously right now they're playing down to them. And, you know, like I said, Lunardi has them as a 10 seed. A lot of times he upstate that almost every day. So there is a chance they could move up if they do well in the SEC tournament. But right now there's also a chance they could end up out or maybe even a bubble team. Again, we'll have to wait and see. Also in college basketball news, Michael Porter Jr., the number 1 recruit coming out of high school this past season, he's been injured. He had back surgery in November. Now, he went to Missouri, who Quanzo Martin is the coach there, used to coach at Tennessee, a little SEC plug there. But he participated in a shoot-around on Saturday, didn't play in that game against Kentucky. He's only had 1 full practice since he had that back surgery, and that was this past Friday. Now, he's been cleared for full contact, but Martin says there's no timetable for him to return. So I want to ask you guys' opinion on this. With him being the number 1 recruit, obviously NBA executives have looked at him or going to be looking at him. Missouri is one of those teams that right now would not make the tournament. Is it okay for him to play from his point of view, or is it okay for Missouri to throw him out there, maybe not 100%?
If he's been medically cleared to play, then I don't see why Missouri should allow him to play. But I think he's pretty much, in Mr. Porter's defense, I think he's taking more precaution from injury-wise, so he won't take that risk again.
Right.
Looking at long term, I don't think it's a good idea to put him in. I mean, if you think about it, if you want to get a quick win out of him and risk that injury, and he might even worsen it, next 3 years, he might not be able to play. So I think long term, I think the coach is making the right decision not putting him in.
Yeah. And he's a young guy, but back surgery is nothing to mess with.
Right.
No.
And it could be something, I know he's been cleared by doctors, but it could be something that lingers, could be something that very easily he could reactivate. I've read an article that NBA executives actually want him to go out and play so they can take a look at him and see him in action. If I'm Missouri, I throw him out there. If I'm Michael Porter Jr., I'm not stepping on the court.
Yeah, that's right.
I would rather just let executives look at me based off of my reputation, go from there, and hope that, look, he's probably still going to be, if not a top 5 pick, at least a lottery pick. He's going to get paid. because he's going to make millions of dollars, that's the exact reason why I would not go out there and play for Missouri this year, especially if they don't really have a shot at making the tournament.
No, because my thing is this would be the perfect time for him to regroup and try to find out what he's going to do long-term wise, and also pretty much I always say stay in the books.
Yeah. And I mean, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with him going out and, exercising and shooting around and doing the things that you need to do, because once the combine starts, he's going to have to do those things. But again, if I'm him, I would rather be 100% for sure when it comes time to do that, as opposed to getting out there in the next game for all you know, getting injured again. So, and then finally, to wrap up the college basketball talk tonight, Buzz Williams, the coach of Virginia Tech. Of course, we mentioned a minute ago that Virginia Tech upset Duke on Monday. At one point, Buzz Williams had to get on the PA system and tell the fans there to stop cussing at Duke players. Now, just real quick, what's your opinion on this?
Dude. Well, as a coach, you got to provide some kind of leadership and also set an example for the young man looking up to you, regardless of what team plays for, what not have you, but it's got to be some kind of boundary how you talk to the young man.
Yeah.
So I just want to clear it up. They were at Virginia Tech Stadium.
Yeah.
And he did it to the Virginia fans. Yeah.
He told his own fans to stop cussing at the Duke players.
I think he had a right to say that, because I mean, it's all, I know a lot of people like to say it's just about competition, but going to different schools is kind of about making that connection in that school, and you don't want to be disrespectful. It's okay. I think it's okay to trash talk, but not be completely disrespectful. Nick Saban had issues with his team before, not his team, but the fans. They'll make some kind of chant sometimes, and it will really upset everybody else. And Nick Saban doesn't like that, so that's an example I can use there. So I think the coach was in the right there.
I agree. Now, listen, I've cussed out some Duke players from my couch plenty of times. I wouldn't necessarily do that if I was watching them live. But, I even have some Duke fans that are friends of mine that said the same thing. Like, they really thought it was outstanding for Buzz Williams to step up and do that. And I'm with you guys. There's no place for that. I know Duke has this persona of being these stuck-up brats, and as a Carolina fan, I fully believe in that.
Yeah.
But again, sportsmanship always needs to be the final thing when it comes to situations like this. So I applaud him for getting out there and telling them to basically shut up. So,
Yes.
But that's it for college basketball this week. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, guys, we just got through talking about college basketball, so I want to move now to the professional NBA, talk a little bit about that. Now, a report came out yesterday that Kawhi Leonard of the San Antonio Spurs is probably going to return to game action at some point in March. He, of course, has been suffering from a right quad injury that has pretty much kept him out for the entire season so far. Now, head coach Greg Popovich, before this came out, has said in the past that he did not expect Leonard to play at all this season. But the Spurs right now are 36-25. They're third in the West behind the Rockets and the Warriors. So I want to ask you, if Kawhi Leonard comes back, do the Spurs have a chance at upsetting the Rockets or the Warriors? And if he doesn't come back, what do you think their chances are then?
Let me say on this, since I've been a diehard San Antonio Spurs fan since 1999, since we've won our first NBA title against the New York Knicks, and we're a 5-time NBA world champions. Anywho,
You doing a wrestling promo?
yeah. We look at the San Antonio Spurs, a well-experienced, balanced one of the greatest coaches in NBA history, in Greg Popovich. We look at Kawhi Leonard, all-star, former Finals MVP. When we look at Kawhi Leonard, I call him like the LeBron James of our team, who plays a very important role for us, has been great for us since we got him. Far as if he comes back, it makes our team look better completely, and we're third in the West right now, which I'd rather be one of the top 3 teams in the Western Conference than rather be below. But if push comes to shove, if we continue to do the work that we've been doing with Kawhi Leonard in our midst, then we'll have a good shot of beating the Rockets and Warriors in the in the Western Conference Finals. But in order to do that, everybody got to play a role, from Parker, Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, Paul Gasol, and LaMarcus Aldridge. We do have a stand a good chance. We just have to find where we are and try to get some identity. And as time progresses, we'll see what happens in the playoffs.
And Russell, do you think? Obviously, Kawhi Leonard, like you said, is a potential MVP candidate.
Yes.
Do you think the Spurs' playoff chances hinge on him playing?
No, I mean, one player doesn't complete a whole team. But with that said, I mean, MVP, I think it can certainly hurt their chances dramatically.
Yeah, I agree. And again, this is one of those things we've said it a couple times already, but we'll have to kind of wait and see approach to see if he comes back, and again, if they're able to dethrone the top two teams ahead of him, of course, the Rockets and the Warriors. Now, speaking of the Warriors, Zaza Pachulia's name has come up again. We kind of tie this in because, as we know, a couple years ago in the Western Conference Finals, he stepped on Kawhi Leonard's ankle and pretty much knocked him out. I think at that point the Warriors were probably, or could have gone down to the Spurs. Of course, we know now that they ended up making it to the finals. But this past week, Zaza is back at it again. Russell Westbrook from the Oklahoma City Thunder got in kind of a tussle on the floor with another player from the Golden State Warriors. Zaza happens to be standing over him and then falls down on top of Russell Westbrook's leg. Now, Westbrook didn't get injured to a point where he couldn't play, but now the talk is Zaza a dirty player?
Man, I'm glad you said that. Zaza Pachulia, like you said a few minutes ago, the incident where he tripped over, or supposedly said over Kawhi Leonard a couple of years ago, and that kind of hurt our chances of beating the Warriors and advancing to the NBA Finals. That was very dirty. Even Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have seen that one. I'm like, what's your deal on why you want to trip players? Because you're desperate for help your team to win. If you're doing it, then you're doing it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Because what you can do is kind of hurt players, and you hurt players and kind of jeopardize their career and probably their livelihood. But in the history of the NBA, we had not only Sasha Pachulia, we had other guys who were considered dirty players in the game. Robert Horry and a few other guys. But in his mindset, desperate time call for desperate measures. So we're looking at, he got to do what he got to do, but you're going by the wrong way.
Right.
And what in the sense what could happen is you could be fined for this.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And I'm surprised he hasn't. He actually may have, but I'm pretty sure he's gotten away with it.
Yes, and it's about the second or third time he has.
I agree. Russell, what's your
Yeah,
take?
I mean, it hurts the integrity of the sport when you're going in and you're trying to be desperate, trying to win games, and having to pull dirty moves like that. It just doesn't cut well, and it can hurt your reputation just as much as the team itself.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. When it happens once, maybe you get away with it. When it starts happening 2, 3 times, 4 times, that's when you become what they call a dirty player, and the fans know it, the coaches know it, the other team knows it, the refs know it, and if he's not careful, he's going to get to a point where he's already being labeled as a dirty player, but he's going to get to a point where he is going to start getting fined, he's going to start getting suspended. And like you said, I get it. He's doing it for his team. He's just going about it the complete wrong way because, like you said, luckily so far, Westbrook's not hurt. Kawhi Leonard got hurt. He eventually came back.
Yes.
But you're messing with guys' livelihood. This is their job. Of course, they're making millions of dollars.
And the job is to play basketball, not to wrestle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, this isn't the WWE. This is the NBA, and I think sometimes Zaza forgets that. Now, sticking with the Golden State Warriors, on Tuesday, they actually skipped their White House visit. Of course, every team that wins a championship, NBA, baseball, whatever it may be, usually takes a trip to the White House. Now, without getting too political here, they, of course, skipped the White House visit on Tuesday. They instead took local D.C. students to the African American Museum. Now, Klay Thompson actually came out with a quote and said that they didn't want to politicize this. Of course, with him simply saying that, they did just that. But what's your opinion on the Warriors skipping the White House visit? Does it matter? Trump actually, after Steph Curry said they weren't going to go, he uninvited them, which, maybe seem a little childish. But what's your opinion on that?
I believe that every team that wins the championship, who does get a White House visit with the president, would not have you. I believe that should be that championship team's choice, for one thing. We already know after you win the championship, the parades get here, everything happens and everything, would not have you. But you should have a choice to do that. In the process, nobody forcing you to go there, but at the end of the day, if a few of the players wants to go meet the president, would not have you, then if everybody else wants to step back, that's on them.
Yeah,
I completely agree with that. I mean, if they all collectively said no to it, and I think that's fine. I mean, I think you got a choice in that. You don't have to make it political. Other people are making it political, it seems. So,
right.
But yeah, I think the choice should be there.
I agree. I think if a team wants to go or doesn't want to go, that's their prerogative. Now, of course, you'll have some people that say no matter who the president is, you should respect the office of it, and I get that. But this is America. If you don't want to go, don't go. If you do want to go, then go.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a big to-do since President Trump took over office. This is not the first team that has declined a visit. But, like you guys said, just to wrap it up, if you don't want to go, then don't go. One thing I like about it is there have been a couple of teams in the past that just didn't show up. At least the Warriors decided to do something productive with it and take some of these local students to the African American Museum, which just opened up, I think, maybe last year, so it's still relatively new. So to me, they didn't want to politicize it. No matter what they do, it was going to be politicized, especially in this day and age, but at least they did something positive with their visit. So, and finally, to bring up the last topic for the NBA, of course, we're talking about the Warriors, who, of course, beat the Cleveland Cavaliers last year. Big topic with them, of course, this offseason is going to be what happens with LeBron. Does he stay? Does he go? Now, I bring that up because I saw on Facebook there are some billboards in the Philadelphia area that read, "Complete the process, #Philly wants LeBron." Do you think there's any chance Philly gets him?
I think everybody wants LeBron.
But do they have a legitimate shot at getting him?
I don't know. I mean, LeBron can go anywhere and he'll be successful. But he might stay at Cleveland. I think he would.
Do you think he'll end up staying
I think so.
Okay.
We're looking at a guy who can pretty much go to a team and transform into a average team to a championship contender. Philly, one of those teams. Philly, he'll be great. LeBron will be great in Philly. The fan base will be up the roof. Attendance will increase. Ticket sales will increase. You'll have some young talent there with Ben Simmons, who was a number 1 draft pick a few years ago, and then you have a all-star center and Embiid. At least you have a big three in that regard. But as push comes to shove, when the off-season gets here in July, which there's 5 other teams considering LeBron could come too, but I'd say Philly won't be a good destination.
Well, my take on it is kudos for whoever did this, because it's the kind of thing you need in order to bring a guy like LeBron to your city. Before the Cavs made all these trades at the trade deadline, I think it was fair to say that the team was getting a little old. After the trades were done, they brought on younger guys like Larry Nance, a couple other guys that haven't even hit their prime yet. With that being said, like you said, in Philly, you've got Joel Embiid, you've got Ben Simmons, 2 former number 1 draft picks who basically really haven't even hit their prime yet.
No.
If LeBron goes there, I think it will re-energize him in the later years of his career. I also think that immediately Philly would become the team to beat in the East. Now, of course, Boston's still there. Toronto's playing great right now.
Yes.
But I think if you pair LeBron James up with Simmons and Embiid, J.J. Redick's there. He's a good 3-point shooter.
I forgot about J.J. Redick.
Yeah, he's
I
there.
forgot him.
Now, the bench isn't that deep, but let's face it. If you bring LeBron, everybody's going to want to come there, even if it's on a minimum contract.
Yes.
So I could definitely see Philly being a destination for him.
And also, and that will put Philly back where they once was when you had Allen Iverson there.
Yeah. and I don't think they've been even close to sniffing a final since he was there.
Yes.
So they're hungry. They just won a Super Bowl. The city probably wants another championship, even if it has to come from the NBA. And maybe Philly's able to lure LeBron up there.
If the money is right, but if you get LeBron, I'm telling you right now, you're looking at a guy you got to give up maybe 1 or 2 first-round picks and cash consideration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, if you can get LeBron, you pretty much do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Now, do I think he'll end up in Philly? Not necessarily. Again, I could see him staying in Cleveland. Of course, they'll break the bank if they have to. There are obviously a lot of other destinations he could end up in. Houston, I've heard, is one of them.
The Lakers.
Of course, the Lakers. The Clippers may go after him.
And New York Knicks.
New York Knicks, pair him up with Porzingis. So, again, we've talked about it before. There's a lot of places LeBron could end up. Again, I've said this several times. We'll have to wait and see. But, again, kudos to Philly.
He'll stay.
You think he'll stay?
I think so.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and
after
see.
July the 1st. We'll see what happens when the free agency for the NBA starts.
That's right. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Speaking of crossing bridges, we're going to do that and take a quick commercial break. When we get on the other side of the bridge, we're going to talk some Olympics. We're going to talk some NASCAR. We're going to talk some WWE. Get back into professional wrestling with WrestleMania right around the corner. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back with the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics.
With hospice, you guys just outdo yourselves every day. And I really appreciate it. I honest to God don't know what I would do if it weren't for you. The things that you do, I'm in approval of. And thank you. I don't know what else to say other than thank you.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, of course, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, guys, of course, the Olympics wrapped up this past Sunday with the closing ceremonies. A lot of big stories that came out of that. Just a couple I want to recap for those watching and listening. The USA men's curling team, who I've talked about on here and on Good Morning San Diego for what it seems like a month, they won gold over the powerhouse Sweden 10-7 since we had our last show. So, of course, I was very excited about that. I always get into curling. I've said it several times. It's so fascinating. But the USA was on the verge of elimination during the round-robin play. But they actually won 5 straight games, including twice over Canada, who, of course, is another powerhouse when it comes to curling. Canada had actually won 3 consecutive gold medals in curling before this. And Sweden actually has a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Eden, who is the number 1 ranked player in the world in curling. So not only did they beat the powerhouse, but they beat the number 1 player in the world. Of course, I didn't even know they had a ranking for curling, but apparently they do.
Wow.
Another quick thing that I noticed, Germany won gold medals in all 3 bobsled events. They actually did this previously in Turin in 2006, but they became the first country to win 6 sliding gold medals at a single Olympics. Now, Russell, give us the recap as far as the medal count.
Well, Norway has won the most in Olympic history as far as medals. So they have 39 total. Germany 31, 29 is Canada, and the U.S. falls 4th on that one at 23, and Netherlands has 20.
Yeah, so I know I read that before the Olympics started, they expected America to win 37 medals. Now, like you said, obviously we didn't make it there. We did well. We won in some events.
9 golds.
Yeah. There were actually, I read, 10 or 11 events where America finished 4th or 5th. So you think about maybe if we could have medaled in some of those, might have changed the count.
Like a copper medal or something.
Yeah, 10. They made 1 out of 10 for us. But like you said, Norway is now has the most medals in Winter Olympic history. Their previous was only 26. They did that twice, in 1994 in Lillehammer and in 2014 over in Sochi. So a lot of great things. We've said it a couple of times. We always love when the Olympics roll around because it gives everybody a chance, white, black, male, female, Democrat, Republican, to pull for America. It's one of those things that everybody can get around. So we'll have to wait for the 2020 Olympics. It's going to be taking place in Tokyo for the Summer Olympics, and then Beijing in 4 years will be the Winter Olympics. So heading over to Asia in the next 2 to 4 years. Now, moving on. We said it before the break. We're going to talk about WWE. The Elimination Chamber was this past Sunday. Now, as we know, Roman Reigns won the Elimination Chamber, pinned Braun Strowman, and will now be facing Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. So, let's start right there. What do you guys think about this?
I think this is 2 of the most heavyweights and the 2 most productive WWE superstars is going head to toe on the wrestling biggest stage on WrestleMania. We look at it sold out most of the year, and everybody who's a wrestling fan looks forward to WrestleMania every year. I look for Roman Reigns to beat Brock Lesnar, but come to shove, also you gotta look at the entertainment side of it. Anything liable to happen, come to an interference, or somebody may come back, or we see somebody retired, or somebody you have not seen in so long will come back and try to do what the unexpected.
Yeah, you never know when it comes to WrestleMania season. Russell, what's your take?
Well, I certainly think Roman Reigns is going to win it. I don't really like the main event because we've seen Roman in the main event the past 3 years now. We've seen him go against Brock Lesnar in the past, and of course that turned into a Money in the Bank cash-in. But I mean, Roman is certainly a workhorse. He's every week in and out of WWE. He does everything. He's almost the next Cena when it comes to that side of wrestling. And him winning it will be deserving. With Brock Lesnar, I'm so sick of Lesnar just showing up like once or twice a year to defend it and then not show up again. He has had it for almost a year now. He's only defended it a few times. Normally, you give 30 days, they're supposed to actually defend the belt, but Brock Lesnar has a special contract, so he gets to do whatever he wants, and it's so annoying for me as a fan and not seeing the belt being represented every Monday night on Raw. So, which is one of the reasons why I think SmackDown's better than Raw. All the champions are always there. So, but I do see Roman Reigns winning it, and I think it'd be most well deserved.
I completely agree with you guys 100%. Brock Lesnar, he's always been a big draw. That's why they put the belt on him to begin with. But like you guys said, he's never on the show. I mean, this is a guy, look, you like SmackDown better than Raw, but let's face it, Raw is the flagship show. And because of that, the highest belt there to me is the bigger of the two world championships. He holds it. We hardly ever see him. I think that it's time for someone who is going to be there week in and week out, like Roman Reigns, who puts in the work. You made a great comparison. He kind of like does what John Cena has done for the last 15 years. Of course, Cena's now more of kind of a part-time guy, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But I agree. I see Roman Reigns winning at WrestleMania in New Orleans for two reasons. One, because Vince has been pushing this guy, and WWE's been pushing this guy for a few years now. He's been champion before, right?
Oh yeah, he
Roman Reigns.
Yes, he's a 3-time world champion.
But like you said, the last time he and Brock met up, Seth Rollins took his thunder.
Yes.
Now I don't know if they did that in anticipation of this, because of course a lot of things could have or have changed in the last 3 years ago, I guess. But Dana White, the UFC president, came out yesterday and said that there is a very good chance Brock Lesnar could come back to the UFC.
Good.
So I look at that as a precursor to Brock losing the belt at WrestleMania and then going back to UFC, maybe forever, maybe just for a little while. Who knows? Maybe he'll go back and forth. But I'm with you guys. I see Roman Reigns winning the belt in New Orleans. Now, also right now in WrestleMania season, Ronda Rousey is a big name that's out there.
Yeah.
She made her debut, came over from UFC with the mixed martial arts. Is going to bring a lot of the fans with her that wouldn't necessarily follow wrestling. She signed her contract at the Elimination Chamber. Of course, we know she ended up throwing Triple H through the table that she was supposed to sign the contract on. And then this past Monday on Monday Night Raw, you guys may have a different opinion, but it seems to me they're setting up a match for WrestleMania that's going to involve Ronda Rousey teaming up with Raw General Manager Kurt Angle against what's known as the Authority, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. What do you think?
I believe that you're looking at Kurt Angle and Triple H, two WWE legends, will go head to toe. Really, we don't see them wrestle that much like they once did. It was a rivalry back in the Attitude Era in the early 2000s.
Sure.
And I truly believe that you compare with Kurt Angle, Ronda Rousey, Triple H, and Stephanie. Even though I love to see The Rock and Ronda Rousey go at it, but that's a dream match I would love to see. But when that would be a good match, you have a good match. Everybody gonna enjoy it. Ronda Rousey, who came over, who will probably dominate the women's division, probably become women's champion down the road. But I will pull for Kurt Angle and Ronda Rousey in that match.
Okay.
Well, before I get into that, I actually want to talk about Ronda Rousey's speech before she signed the contract, before she threw Triple H to the table. I really enjoyed that speech because it really sounded like it actually came from the heart.
Yeah.
Talking about coming into WWE wanting to do the name Rowdy. Her idol was Roddy Piper, and she gets to use the Rowdy name.
Right.
And wanting to live up to that and earn it. I really enjoy listening to that speech.
I agree. Sorry, go ahead.
But I do think that she's her and Kurt Angle will team up together. It just seems like it makes sense because I think Kurt's going to get thrown out of Raw as general manager after WrestleMania.
He very well could. And
if he wins against Triple H and Stephanie.
yeah.
Well, if he does get thrown out, I think he might go over to SmackDown because Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon have not been getting along very recently, and that could
Yeah,
fall
because
apart.
you know what, Kurt Angle was on SmackDown GM once before
yeah.
he went to TNA.
And, like you said a little while ago, anything can happen during WrestleMania season. For all we know, The Rock could get involved. He and Ronda Rousey had a moment a couple years ago at WrestleMania, which kind of fueled all the speculation that got us to the point where we are now. And Ronda Rousey has signed a full-time contract.
Yes.
Now, we don't know if that's, from now until after WrestleMania and then she disappears for a while, or if she's going to go in and week out. I don't think that's exactly what we'll see, but you never know. Maybe this time next year, her and The Rock are teaming up. We'll have to wait and see.
Do you think her coming into WWE and Brock going back to UFC might correlate together with that? Might be a trade between Vince and Dana?
Maybe, although the feeling I get is that Vince McMahon and Dana White don't like each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, they kind of compete with each other. So I'm not so sure they'd want to be in cahoots together on something like this. I think, in my opinion, it's more of just a coincidence than anything else. And again, there's a big difference between the women's side of it and the men's division. Not saying that one is better than the other, but again, Brock and Ronda are two of the biggest names in both sports right now. Even though Ronda hasn't fought in a while and Brock hasn't fought in a while in UFC, when they fight, if she were to ever come back and if Brock were to ever go back, they immediately go to the top of the card. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, mentioning Cena, mentioning SmackDown, John Cena, of course, this past week said he's going to move to SmackDown. He came out this past Tuesday, said as much, ended up fighting AJ Styles in the main event, which was a great match, 5-star match, as you would expect between those two. Beat AJ Styles and will now be part of a 5-man, I don't know what you call it, a fatal 5-way match at Fastlane coming up, which will be the final pay-per-view before WrestleMania, but will be SmackDown's version of, I guess, the Elimination Chamber, even though they won't have the cage match. But again, that'll be the go-home show, as they call it, as far as pay-per-views before WrestleMania. So what kind of impact do you think John Cena's going to have?
If we're looking at a guy who has been in the WWE over 16 years, already proved his worth. I would love to see him being back on the top stage at WrestleMania and trying to break Ric Flair's record of being a 16-time world champion to become a 17-time world champion. He comes in day in and day out to perform for his fans, but I would love to see John Cena go to WrestleMania and win the belt.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to win that Fastlane. I think AJ Styles going to retain that, and I say that because for a few years now, since Shinsuke Nakamura has been down in NXT and has won the Royal Rumble now, that's a dream match between AJ Styles and Nakamura. So I think they're going to continue with that and have that happen. And Cena will probably go on maybe against The Undertaker. He's still got time to get into that.
I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. Of course, Nakamura won the Royal Rumble, so he's guaranteed a shot no matter who's there. I agree with you. I think Styles will retain at Fastlane. He and Nakamura will have what I'm assuming is going to be a 5-star match. I mean, like you said, this has been a dream match in the works ever since WWE signed Nakamura. And I agree with you. I think John Cena will end up fighting The Undertaker, two guys that for some reason have never met up. And if they have, it obviously wasn't at WrestleMania.
Because the last time John Cena and The Undertaker fought back, it was back early part of his career, but that's when you had The Undertaker was in his prime, known as the American Badass.
And I know we didn't discuss this earlier, but you're talking about Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan. I know Bryan's been hurt. I don't know if he's been medically cleared. Is there a scenario where Bryan could end up fighting McMahon at WrestleMania?
I doubt it because he's still not cleared by WWE staff. I know a few weeks ago, it might have been a few months ago, in fact, they actually showed him getting chokeslammed by Kane, although they blacked out the lights on it, so they didn't really show it. But I don't think Bryan's going to get back into it. However, he might be able to find somebody that can fight for him.
And he stay ringside kind of thing?
Yeah.
Because we're looking at another thing about WrestleMania, we're looking at The Undertaker, Question is, who you gonna fight, John Cena or somebody else?
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody else other than John Cena.
I agree, and I've heard speculation for a while now that it's going to be Cena. Of course, these things could change, or may have already changed. But to me, WrestleMania is not complete if you don't have Daniel Bryan there. I mean, let's face it, this guy is still, even though he hasn't wrestled in over a year, is still one of the most popular guys to go through it. Yeah. I mean, anytime he's there, and now it's caught on to other wrestlers when they start talking and it's a question that the audience can say yes to, they start doing the yes chant.
All the time. It's like the new what?
Exactly, which agducated
Like,
me. That's
like with Stone
thing,
Cold,
but
that used to get on my nerves.
I used to hate the what chants.
And even during that time frame where at WrestleMania, like you can see a lot of retired superstars coming back. Like, you can't have a WrestleMania without The Rock. I'm sorry.
I think he'll make at least one appearance.
He'll electrify it.
Well, I mean, remember a few years ago, I think the last time they were in New Orleans, not too long ago, The Rock came out, Stone Cold came out, Hulk Hogan all came out, and of course, to me, that was huge.
Yeah, that's when Shawn Michaels, all of them came. I think that was I
know in Texas they had Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley as Jack.
Yes.
And, there was a lot of great ones that came out.
Yeah, a lot of them came out, and with the New Day and everything.
Yeah, and I obviously, that very well could happen where we see these guys come out, even if it's just for one segment.
Yes.
Just to bring back that nostalgia. The one beef that I have with WrestleMania season is WWE seems to rely on guys that were popular when we were younger, back in when you were probably a kid, but when you and I were younger, back when in the Attitude Era, guys like Triple H, guys like Kurt Angle, Undertaker,
Chris Jericho, The Rock, and Stone Cold.
Is WWE relying on these guys a little too much? I mean, would you like to see some of these younger guys get some spotlight?
I would like to see that. I mean, I like seeing the older guys still have their moments, but like Triple H wrestling almost every main event, it seems like I think it takes away from the young guys who can make their names. I mean, you got guys like Sami Zayn who could be shining in the spotlight right now, but just doesn't get there, and I think that hurts them a lot.
Yeah.
Because you love, even with the retired superstar who make their comebacks for one time, we would love to see Stone Cold do a stunner on somebody.
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to see The Rock do his little sayings and do a people's elbow or rock bottom.
Yeah, everybody loves that.
Yeah.
I, of course, was a big Rock fan, so I would love to see that.
What's your favorite WrestleMania moment?
I don't even know. You know what it would be? Shawn Michaels when he came down on the zip line.
Oh, yes.
Of course, that was like in the early 90s. But since you put me on the spot, I think that's what I would go with. So.
My favorite WrestleMania moment would have been WrestleMania 14 for the first time when you had The Undertaker and Kane. I mean, two big dudes, literally two big dudes going at it. And I remember watching it, and then I remember The Undertaker gave his baby brother a third tombstone power driver and for the win.
Mine would be a few years ago when they were in Dallas when Undertaker faced against Shane McMahon. And that was the first time I ever watched a WrestleMania. It was actually my first pay-per-view ever I watched live. So seeing Shane jump off of the Hell in a Cell,
right,
that was just mind-blowing to me. So.
And, of course, when The Undertaker lost for the first time at WrestleMania, it was obviously a big moment. Of course, we could go on and on.
Yeah, because that ESPN, they blew, everybody blew that up.
Yeah, but Fastlane pay-per-view for SmackDown is going to be March 11th, so a week from Sunday. I know we kind of ran a little long on this, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get into NASCAR. Of course, they were at Atlanta Motor Speedway this past weekend, and the Honda Classic. Going to talk a little golf for the first time. Of course, Tiger Woods participating in that. So all that and more when we come back from the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, moving on from wrestling, we're going to get to the track here, guys. Talk a little NASCAR. Russell, you, of course, last week predicted that Kevin Harvick would win the Atlanta Motor Speedway race, and he did. So, first of all, what did he need to do in order to win this race, and how did you know he was going to do it?
Well, I think how he was going to win was not wreck the car, first of all, because they had the fastest car all day. Everything's going right for that team. And I think it was well overdue because for the past 5 races at Atlanta, he's dominated, just never been able to close it out. And he's got over 1,000 laps led there in the past 5 years. Just a lot of great talent on his Ford team. And Ford dominated that race as well, and 1, 2, 3 in that one. So Harvick has certainly found the right pace, and he's going to come up some more of his favorite playgrounds, if you will. I mean, you got Phoenix coming up. They're going to do the West Coast Swing here coming up very soon. Phoenix, Fontana will be a good track for him. I see a lot of good stuff going on in his near future.
Now, you mentioned that Ford was 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember you mentioning in a previous show that Chevy's got a Camaro this year.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Do you think Ford will continue to dominate, or do you think Chevy's going to jump in the game here?
Chevrolet has that new body style, and I still think it's hurting them a little bit. However, they also changed up the rule packages for this season. They always do it every season. Sometimes even mid-season they'll change it up. So Chevrolet's got to figure it out, and Toyota does too. It took Toyota over half the season before they finally figured out what was going on last season. Chevrolet has been struggling the past few years. Ford has gotten something going for them. They usually start off strong anyways in the season. For a driver like Jimmy Johnson, who's already calling for this might be his last year. This could be his worst year ever because he's wrecked out in Atlanta and he didn't do well in Daytona. So I mean, honestly, the way I see Jimmy Johnson, like a guy like him, he'll start getting warmed up in the summertime. That's usually when Hendrick Chevrolets do good. So I mean, I think Chevrolet will figure something out later on, just not right now.
I agree. Now, you mentioned during the break that NASCAR is, renewing negotiations with Monster Energy? What's the deal with that?
So, Monster Energy is the sponsorship for the Cup Series. So, it's the NASCAR it's the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. That's the title for it. But Monster Energy is right now in the middle of trying to sign an extension. However, they keep pushing it back. I mean, they've extended that deadline now for, I think, twice now.
NASCAR keeps pushing it back?
Monster Energy has been. I think they're debating on if they want to stay with it or back out. Obviously, NASCAR wants them to stay in, but I'm sure they've got a lot of other sponsors that will be willing to come in place with them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Monster Energy hasn't been the sponsor for very long, have they?
No, this is their second. I want to say this year's their second season.
Yeah, and they've had a few different companies over the last 10 years, I guess.
Sprint was the last one. It was Nextel before that, and then of course Winston.
Right.
So
they had to get away from the cigarette business.
Yeah, and also of course they used to have the Busch Series. Now it was Nationwide, and now they're the Xfinity Series.
Right.
The Camping World Truck Series is still about the same. The last one there was Craftsman, but losing a sponsorship like Monster Energy, who I think is doing really good for the sport in some ways, but they're also kind of hurting it too because they haven't done a lot of promotion for NASCAR. Whereas they do a lot at the track, go off the track, they're not doing that much. So hopefully NASCAR, if they need to, they'll find somebody who's going to be more loyal to the sport.
Let's see, I'm wondering if Monster Energy is being hesitant because, I mean, let's face it, NASCAR is not nearly as popular as it used to be, in my opinion, when it was based primarily in the South. Of course, like you said, they moved west. They moved to some bigger cities like the Chicago area. Of course, Dallas has one outside of the metro area there. Do you think that's something that's playing into it?
I think so, but I can't fault NASCAR for trying to go out and expand. I mean, they can't just stay in the South the whole time. I hate that they left Rockingham. I still hate that. I guess from a business standpoint, it wasn't working for them. Of course, other things went on with that too. I could sit here all day and talk about that. But going out to tracks like Fontana, where they sell out every year, they sell out at Auto Club Speedway every single year. They go up north and they get a lot of stands still there. Of course, in Florida, we always sold out Daytona and Homestead Miami on the championship weekend. I don't know what NASCAR's got to do with that, but I think trying to expand, trying to get more people to come out there and race and more people seeing it, I think it helps them out. But I think right now they're kind of just making their money off of TV more than the stands.
Right, which is pretty much what every sport's doing now is making TV money. Now, big question, actually 2 big questions. Where are we headed next for NASCAR, and who do you expect to win?
We're going out to Auto Club Speedway, Fontana, and I would say Jimmy Johnson in this situation. However, he's not working well past 2 races. A lot of bad luck. I don't see him doing well. But I'm probably going to go with Brad Keselowski on this one because he has been on a hot streak recently. and he's determined this year. I think he can pull it off.
Well, so far you've been pretty spot on with the predictions. Of course, Keselowski finished second in Atlanta, so we'll have to come back next week and see if you were right again. Now, moving from the racetrack to the golf course. This past weekend, the Honda Classic wrapped up. Justin Thomas won in a one-hole playoff over Luke List to win the Honda Classic, which is great, but of course Tiger Woods was involved, so of course we have to talk about Tiger. He finished even for the tournament. He was 12th place. He shot a 70, 71, 69, and 70 for a total of 280. So the whole tournament he was right there around even. But we're only 5 weeks away from the Masters, which is of course in Augusta, Georgia, not too far south from here. I want to get your guys' opinion. Does Tiger have a chance of winning the Masters? Because, at this point in his career, the only thing that really matters to him is getting the majors. Does he have a chance to win, and what does he need to do in order to win at the Masters?
Well, I think he has a clear shot of making the Masters and win it, but in order to do that, he has to be Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be able. I don't know if he's really got it in him anymore to win the Masters. There's a lot of young guys out there who's making their impact. I can't see him winning it. He's probably, if anything, he's going to try and survive through it.
Well, I will say this. On Sunday specifically, I think he hit 14 out of 18 greens in regulation, which is really good. Didn't do that well in the first 3 days as far as that was concerned. But I saw a stat that really was surprising to me. Tiger's club head speed averaged 128.42 miles per hour at the Honda Classic, which would have led the PGA Tour every year going back to 2007, which was the first year they started tracking it. So obviously it seems like he's getting his power back. Tiger's always been able to hit it big off the tee. I think it's going to come down to, is he going to be prepared? Is he going to play any tournaments between now and then? We'll have to wait and see on that. Tiger's Tiger. He seems to, not in the past couple of years, but he seems to always be there in those big moments. And I look for him to not necessarily win at the Masters, but I can see him placing pretty high because he has the experience. He knows what to expect from Augusta, especially in Amen Corner, which is one of the famous 3 or 4 sets of holes in all of golf. So I can kind of expect him to do well there. And just another quick snippet about the PGA. The Ryder Cup is coming up in September. I don't know if you guys know this. It's Americans versus the Europeans. We kind of go back and forth between a course in America to a course in Europe. Of course, at the end of September this year, it's going to be at the Albatross course of Le Golf National in France. Now, the big story about this is not only because it's the Ryder Cup, and that's a big deal, people always get into it, but Jim Furyk, who is our captain this year, has put Steve Stricker and Tiger Woods as vice captains. You think that's a good move?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Well, I'm not sure if as vice captains these guys will even play. I know Furyk won't play as the captain. Tiger Woods has kind of gotten away from the Ryder Cup aspect of it. Like I said, he mostly does the big tournaments these days, and then a couple of small ones like the Honda Classic, maybe some other small ones too as well. But Steve Stricker, another guy that's an older guy, is a name that most casual golf fans know who he is. I personally think it's a good move. Anytime you can get that experience on your team for some of these young guys that have experience maybe a little bit or not at all, that can only be a positive.
Yeah,
so,
put him in the leadership position.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's exactly what I'm getting at. But we're going to wrap up the show. Once we get back, we're going to do the love it or hate it. And we're also going to do a new edition of something we call Big Impact Players, brought to us by RCC. So we'll get into all that and wrap up the show right after these messages. Just watching the First Health Orthopedics RO Sports Show. Welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Now, as I mentioned before the break, we want to try something new today, guys. we're going to do our Big Impact Players, brought to you by RCC, Richmond Community College. Of course, their motto is Local College, Big Impact. So, Russell, who's your Big Impact Players for this week?
Well, I've got a team here, UNC Pembroke, the Braves. They are now the two-time now Peach Belt Conference champions in basketball. They finished out the regular season 23-5 and conference 19-3. They defeated Flagler 78-67. So big congratulations to the Braves.
Jeremy?
We want to give a shout out to 3 fine people for making the Raider All SEC basketball team, and Kiana Love and Alexis Sweeney and Xavier Pettigrew. These 3 individuals had good seasons on the court, and also we just want to continue to keep up with the good work, what you're doing, and pretty much coming next season, bring it all on the court again.
That's right. And my Big Impact Players for this week is actually from our community college neighbor to the north, Sandhills Community College, who defeated arch rival Davidson County in Saturday's championship game of the Region X tournament. So the Flyers defeated the Storm to claim another championship. This is actually their second one. So, of course, kudos to them, and that's our Big Impact Players of the week. Now, moving on to my favorite, might be y'all's, is Love It or Hate It. Up for this week, starting out, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs traded basically their top cornerback, Marcus Peters, to the Los Angeles Rams for draft picks. This won't go through until the new season starts on March 14th. But, Jeremy, love it or hate it?
I love it because you're looking at the Los Angeles Rams had a good year defensive-wise, number 2 ranked. And they even upgraded a secondary that, pretty much brought in a top corner in the league, which that's going to end the tenure of Tremaine Johnson, who is lucky to be released in the next couple of weeks. But you're looking at a guy who is a ball hawk and with interceptions, whatnot have you. I hate for Kansas City for doing this, but hopefully Kansas City can rebuild their secondary, probably draft a corner in the first round.
All right.
I'm going to say hate it because I don't know why Kansas City will want to get rid of one of their top players.
Yeah, I'm going to love it, at least from the Rams' perspective. Like you said, Tremaine Johnson won't have to be franchise tagged now. He'll probably end up somewhere. He could end up in Kansas City for all we know. It might as well be a trade. Marcus Peters, one of the best cornerbacks in the game right now. Like you said, he's a ball hawk. Kansas City may be taking a bit of a turn here. They traded Alex Smith to the Redskins. They're going to start a rookie, Patrick Mahomes. Well, actually, it'll be a second year, but might as well be a rookie. Under center at quarterback. You're losing your top cornerback, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But as far as for the Rams, I love it because you've got a young team. You've got a young quarterback, Jared Goff there. You've got a great defense, Aaron Donald, basically the leader there, one of the best defensive players in the league. Moving on. Most draft experts have the Carolina Panthers taking a wide receiver at the 24th pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Love it or hate it?
I'm truly going to hate this one because by me being a diehard Carolina Panthers fan, we have so many needs on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, but I don't see us taking a wide receiver. I had already completed my first mock draft pick already, and I see Carolina take a safety in the first round.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to hate it because I don't see why I'm just going to get a new quarterback.
Come on, man.
You and me,
Come on.
I'm not the biggest Cam Newton fan either,
either.
but I'm going to say love it, and here's why. When Cam Newton had an MVP season, he had Ted Ginn on the outside. He had a speedster. Kelvin Benjamin was there. This past year, they basically were throwing to Devin Funchess, who is not a number 1 wide receiver in my opinion. If I'm them at this point, I've seen some mock drafts. They have a chance to get James Washington out of Oklahoma State, who at this point is the top wide receiver on big boards draft-wise. So I think the Panthers need that on the outside to spread defenses out so Cam can throw it, or if he needs to, take off and run. So I'm going to say love it. Now, speaking of the NFL draft, there are some, maybe even the majority of NFL scouts that think former Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson should switch to wide receiver. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say love it because we look at the history. You're looking at, let's give a prime example like Terrell Pryor. Most of y'all know who's a big-time quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And when he got to the league, he played quarterback for a little while with Oakland Raiders and a couple other teams. And then once he made that transition to wide receiver to keep his career going in the NFL, we all know when once he got to had a big 1,000-yard season when he was in Cleveland, and then he signed that 1-year deal in Washington last season that which didn't pan out too well, but I always say you'll never know until you try to a different position, and it might work out. Look at the guys like Justin Edelman from the New England Patriots. He was a quarterback, turned to a wide receiver. You know how that turned out.
Right.
I'm going to say love it because, I mean, trying something new to regenerate, add some more energy to your career and rejuvenate, that's what I'm looking for, to fix your career up and maybe get something going. So I love it.
I love it too. As of right now, most draft boards have Lamar Jackson as the 7th overall quarterback to go. He's not going to go in the first round, I don't think. Of course, that could change. If I were him, I would switch to wide receiver because, look, he was a Heisman Trophy winner just 2 years ago. He dominated in college. He actually had a better season this past year than he did, numbers-wise, in his Heisman season. But when you get to the NFL, everybody is as fast as you are. You know, you've got a nose tackle that can chase down your quarterback that runs a 4.5 40. That's not something he necessarily saw in college. You know, he was able to outmaneuver, jump over guys, outrun them.
Yes.
You can't really get away with that in the NFL. As we've seen in the past, you can run as a QB, but most times you need to learn to stay in the pocket. Maybe he could develop into that. I don't know. But if I'm him, I'm going to take that speed and agility that he has and basically use it on the outside. So I'm going to say love it. Now, going to do something close to your heart. Alabama has promoted Mike Loxley and Josh Tupoi to the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator job, respectively. Also going to throw in there, a report came out a couple of days ago that they're looking at former Tennessee coach Butch Jones. So let me start with you, Russell. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say love it because I trust Nick Saban to make the right decisions. Every decision he's made has led to championship after championship. Not only is he processing his players, but also his coordinators. And with Butch Jones, I would love that as well because there's a guy who's not had a great career over at Tennessee, has gotten thrown out. Nick Saban has turned around coaches' careers. Look at Lane Kiffin, for example.
Yeah. Yes.
Turned him around and now has him being successful at FAU. So I think Butch coming in, though, as an Alabama fan and him being a former Tennessee coach, I don't really like that part of it, but I can get behind Nick Saban and I trust him for that, so love it.
Okay.
I love it. I'm an Alabama fan myself. I trust Nick Saban's confidence, what he's going to do, and we'll continue to win more championships.
I'm right there with you guys. I love it too. I mean, I can't say it any other way. Nick Saban obviously knows what he's doing. He's turned over so many coaches at this point. You think maybe there might get to a point where he's going to start running out of guys, but anybody that's on the up and up is going to want to coach there. And to me, this is just going to be another example of guys moving up. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. Steve Sarkisian was another guy similar to Butch Jones who didn't necessarily come from Saban's coaching tree, but came there, was the offensive coordinator, and now he's the OC for the Atlanta Falcons. So I can see a scenario where Butch Jones goes there for a year in whatever capacity it is, and then moves on to some other job later on in the future.
And look at Kirby Smart, too. Almost beat his former head boss. So.
Well, see, that's the thing. A lot of these guys, Nick Saban churns them out. They just can't beat him.
Yeah.
He learns about 90% of what he knows.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Coach Saban respect those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And finally, for love it or hate it, Blake Bortles has got a 3-year, $54 million extension from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Love it or hate it?
I hate it because, for one, for the reason being, congratulations to Jacksonville on the season you had, almost went to the Super Bowl. But we're looking at a guy has had an up and down career. Maybe have a good 300-yard game, passing game one Sunday, and the following Sunday he's subject to sucks.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a guy who pretty much can. You can build your team around, but yes, the weapons were hurt last year, and I truly believe that if he has the weapons around him, continue to develop him as a franchise quarterback, I think he'll do well. But I truly believe if I was a GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, $54 million extension, that's too much money for a guy who has not been to a Pro Bowl since his rookie year, or pretty much has not been to a All-Pro or took the team to make one playoff appearance. To me, I would have gave him probably about $35, $40 million.
So you're more at fault with the amount of money so much as, or maybe the years as well.
Yes.
Okay. Russell, love it or hate it?
I would say hate it. I mean, yeah, they had a great season last year, but I mean that surprised me that Jaguars went to the playoffs and almost beat Patriots in a sense. So I was like, what? But I don't think Bortles is going to have a great long term effect for the Jaguars.
I'm going to
find
say
somebody else in college and pick them up.
I'm going to say love it. The reason being, the Jaguars, like we said, made the playoffs last year behind a great defense and Leonard Fournette, who is a beast of a running back.
Yes.
They didn't necessarily rely on Blake Bortles to win games for them. I know there were a couple that they needed him to, and he did. The same defense is back. Leonard Fournette's going to be back next year. You expect Fournette, he's just had his rookie season. He'll be there for the next 3 years. A lot of these guys on defense are signed through these 3 years. Jacksonville has some money to spend. I don't think the money aspect of it they really care about. If Blake Bortles, like you said, can continue to develop, if they keep Allen Robinson, a name that we threw out last week, that could be cut. We'll have to wait and see with that. But I can see the Jaguars being the team to beat in the AFC South if they can continue to develop. Of course, I also think that Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans may have something to say about that.
Yeah, you're right.
Later on in the future. Well, that's it, folks, for this edition of the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And, of course, we are here every Thursday night at 5:30. You can watch us on the Richmond Observer app, the Richmond Observer website, the Richmond Observer YouTube page, and you can also listen to us on The Classic Rock. So a ton of ways to watch and listen. And, of course, guys, it is all free. So thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you right back here again next week.